We're going to call this special meeting of Erie County Council to order on Thursday, August 5th, 2021 at 5:10 p.m. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, Councilwoman Showerman will lead us in our optional prayer.
This is a quote from Nelson Mandela. It seemed fitting for tonight's meeting. It says, "It always seems impossible until it's done."
Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote for tonight's meeting?
Most certainly. Mrs. Clear?
Here.
Mr. Horton?
Here.
Mr. Rastetter?
Here.
Mrs. Rennie?
Here.
Mrs. Showerman?
Here.
Mr. Shank?
Here.
Chairman Anderson?
Here. Each meeting, we give members of the public an opportunity to be heard. Anyone that gets to the agenda before the agenda has been published has 5 minutes to speak. This meeting, nobody had done so, but if you are not on the agenda, you still have an opportunity to be heard, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. So are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? Are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? And finally, are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll continue on with our meeting. We do not have tonight any minutes of a previous meeting, so we will go on to reports of county officials. And tonight we have a report from the county executive. Madam County Executive Dahlkamper, please go ahead. And thank you for being here, if you would like. Thank you. And thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Council members, thank you. I will start with the news that's not good, and that is that I was just informed within the last half hour that with today's COVID numbers, we are now in the substantial range in terms of infection rates here in Erie County. Very concerning, as we know, especially, and you would understand this as clear as our children get ready to head back to school here. But we ask all of our citizens to please do what they can to protect themselves, their family members, and particularly to protect our children, especially those under 12 who cannot get vaccinated. And the CDC recommendation is that once you reach substantial, that everyone indoors, vaccinated or non-vaccinated, wears a mask. That is the CDC recommendation. So that's the latest news from the health department, and unfortunately, we are in that space now. But we're here tonight to vote on the American Rescue Plan Act funds for Erie County. A historic moment in our county and our nation's history, an opportunity that I believe all of us know probably will not happen in the time that we are in elected office, certainly not again in the time that I'm elected office, but in probably most of our lifetimes. That this is truly a historic moment to invest cautiously, but innovatively and I think very strategically in our community. This process that we have gone through for the past number of months, I have to say, has been one of the most collaborative processes that I've been able to be part of with County Council and with the administrative staff and all of my directors and outside entities, particularly those that are sort of arms of the county, such as the Redevelopment Authority and the Gaming Revenue Authority and others. And I think we have come together here in Erie County with a very impactful plan. I think we're being looked at not only across this Commonwealth, but across this nation as being very forward-thinking. And also we're getting the money out. and that is what the money is supposed to do. The money was put through legislation to get it out back into our communities, to really start to get our economy back up and going, and to help those people most affected by COVID-19 and the pandemic over the last year and a half. So I want to, first of all, thank everyone who's helped to work through this process. Chairman Anderson, Vice Chair Clear, and truly every member of County Council. It's been a pleasure working with you. I want to thank my staff and those who I said are affiliates of county government, particularly the Redevelopment Authority and the Gaming Revenue Authority, for their assistance with this. And I look forward to your passage of this ordinance tonight and the good that it will do. I believe all of us will look back on this in hopefully 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years, and we'll know that we truly made a significant positive difference for the citizens of Erie County, not only the citizens today, but the citizens of the future. So again, thank you for your vote tonight. One last thing I have to say is I have to give a special thank you to Tracy today. Tracy Fagali, who this is her last county council meeting. And Tracy, I don't know how many you've been to, but it's been a lot. And if you added up your hours, you've probably been here a few lifetimes. But I think we all owe Tracy a debt of gratitude for her very, very long service to county government, but particularly to this body and to the administration, not only my administrations, but administrations before me. And you will be greatly missed. Your knowledge is extensive. I lean on you a lot, and I'm truly going to miss you too. So thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam County Executive. Next on our agenda, we have a report from our Finance Chairwoman, Kim Clear. Chairwoman Clear, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee actually met today, this evening, August 5th at 3 o'clock, and we discussed the items on our agenda that we see today, Ordinance number 65 and Ordinance number 66. And we went through those in great detail, painstaking detail. Not only last night, but I'm going to continue my report here. As I would like to, as the finance chairwoman, I would like to acknowledge all of the work that has been done. And I'm going to say for 6 months, if not even longer. The COVID Impact Committee that you set up, Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of January, knowing that there was the possibility that we were going to have money coming from the federal government, but your foresight in having coming up with a plan and having it ready for when the money came to us, it was instrumental, I think, in creating what was done here. The county executive also created and brought together members from the community all over the county, business leaders, social people in the nonprofit community, social groups, churches, all over the municipality, all the different municipalities to come together to craft ideas for this. The COVID Impact Committee that I served on with you, Mr. Chairman, along with Councilwoman Rennie and Councilman Shank, I think we were able to talk to, we were able to listen, more importantly, to members of the community from all over. As I stated, we talked with people from nonprofits, from the universities, business ideas that were very forward-thinking ideas. We have been doing our homework for 6-7 months. We have been doing our homework. We talked to the Redevelopment Authority. We talked with EGRA. We worked with the Council of Governments and Jessica Haran-Kunso. We have been working for hundreds of hours to get ready for this moment. This is not something that any of us took lightly. And the breadth and the scope of the work that was done in the report that Perry Wood has helped create through EGRA and with previous county executive, my goodness, a previous county executive, Judy Lynch, Dr. Judy Lynch, I also think demonstrates this. But where there was much depth, there was also intentionality with every single line item that was brought forward by the county executive and by Chairman Anderson. They were intentional to make the greatest impact and to make the greatest difference in Erie County, to leverage the funding, to make sure that we aren't just using what we have, but also seeing what we can use and what we can couple it with for the future. There are so many people that went into this. I know that we worked with also Amy Murdoch from the Erie, my goodness, Chamber, Erie Chamber, and as I said, Tina Mengine, and also Tracy and Jim Sparber. We cannot thank all of you enough for all of the help that you gave us in this process, and all of council as well. I just want to thank every one of you for all of the hours that we spent. The world record finance meeting a few weeks ago of, 5.5, 6 hours. That was painstakingly long. But you know what? We were intentional. We took our time because that's what the job is. It's going through the details. It's making sure that no stone is left unturned. And most of the people in this room stuck with us through the full 5.5, 6 hours that we were there. And it was worth it. I think it was worth it. Because I think what we have here that we're presenting today is going to change the trajectory. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, County Executive. Thank you, Tracy, for everything. And Attorney Tellerico, Ms. Worsfinger, thank you. I finished my report. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Finance Woman Claire, and thank you for those kind words. Much appreciated. Personnel Committee Chair Mary Rennie, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that report. And Councilman Scott Ratstetter has a report from the CCAP conference that he and I had just attended. CCAP is the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania. And Mr. Ratstetter, if you're ready, go ahead with your report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me now? Okay. I was honored to go down to the CCAP, that's the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, meeting in Hershey, PA. The past 3 days I was there, and boy, I learned a lot. They had all kinds of seminars on public safety, mental health, fire departments. Those are the three big issues. When people found out I was from Erie County, they always asked about Fiore. That was the #1 question. How's Fiore? How's Fiore? And they asked about the home rule charter, because we're quite odd with that. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that go there, and they're very dedicated to the job, and some of them are just amazing how much they know and the knowledge that they have about our democracy and the Constitution, and it was just really amazing. And I encourage my colleagues to get down there and learn from everybody in the state. It's a very enlightening experience. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Ratstetter. Tonight, I'm going to give some brief remarks, and tonight is an exciting night. But before I get into the purpose of our meeting tonight, I do want to add to Councilman Ratstetter's comments about the CCAP conference. Exciting news coming back to Erie County as one of the participants in the conference. We were able, with one of our local vendors, who is doing work out in the West County. They were putting together a package for those that came and visited and answered certain questions at their booth that they had. A number of prizes to local communities, and I'm honored to say that I was one of the grand prize winners, which is a $1,000 scholarship to a local nonprofit, which no one should be surprised that I chose the Erie County Community College, and or secondly, the Erie County Historical Society. So in the service area of the West County, a student or the Historical Society will receive those funds from Kinetic Windstream. So that was a great opportunity for our community. But we're here tonight because, as it's been said already, we're here on a historic moment. And as we move forward from a pandemic that has really changed all of our lives, we know that we still have a long way to go. And I think one thing that we've all learned from the pandemic, if nothing else, is that united together as a people, we have a strength and resiliency beyond anyone. And to the people of Erie County, we owe it to them, the dedication that Chairwoman Clear talked about and the work that we're putting forward. I'm honored to serve with every member of council who sits here in working with the administration and the people that are dedicated every day to the work they do on behalf of the people of Erie County, Pennsylvania. We don't always get along, we don't always agree, but ultimately in the end, we work together, we compromise, we collaborate, and we put forth what we believe is the best for Erie County. Madam County Executive, to you, thank you for all the work that you've done and your staff and administration. To all of my colleagues, particularly those that have served on the COVID committee, thank you for all of your input, and to our staff, certainly. But Madam Vice Chair, to you, I will return the compliment that you as co-chair and chair of the Finance Committee have worked tirelessly on behalf of this community to put forward the things that you believe in, the things that you are dedicated to, and the items that you know will help transform this community and move us forward. Your dedication is exemplary, and I have been honored to work side by side with you. You know, we came together last year when we were working on the CARES funds, of which past Chairman Horton played such a vital role. And we knew that what was happening last year was going to continue, and that we knew that we had to change the way we do business in this community if we're going to be able to transform it. And we began to talk about ideas of how we could do that. And what was born from that was the COVID Impact and Recovery Committee, which I formed as chairman and co-chaired with Councilwoman Clear. But we had a lot of assistance with that, particularly Perry Wood and the staff and the board of the Gaming Revenue Authority, who believed in what we were attempting to accomplish and participated fully with us. What we are going to present tonight is not only forward-thinking, but Madam County Executive, I would only correct one thing that you said, and that is that we don't think that other communities are watching us. There's absolutely no question other communities are watching us. The other talk at CCAP was, what is Erie County doing? What more is Erie County going to bring forward? Erie County is on the move. we're looking to Erie County for the leadership that Erie County has exhibited. What do you mean you're going to pass a diversity commission? What do you mean you're putting forward a fire authority? These are amazing things, as some of our colleagues from around the state had said to me. And we're going to continue to look to the leadership of Erie County to move this Commonwealth forward and this country. That gives great satisfaction to us who are working here and doing that work as we bring these two ordinances forward tonight. And I will say, without going through all of the line items, that first and foremost, Council has put forward what we believe are our responsibilities to this county, to the departments and agencies that we're responsible for, to take their instability and make them stable again so they can flourish and lead this community forward. And sprinkled in there are a number of initiatives that I believe will change the trajectory of this community forever. From full tuition waiver for students of the Erie County Community College to the seed work of a fire authority, which will be the impetus for what I believe will be a regional fire authority countywide, and will change recruitment, volunteerism, and retention of those volunteers. And we're also bringing forward our recommitment to the lead assets of this community, to the municipal partners that we have, filling in the gaps, as we know there's going to be other silos of money coming down from the federal government. We're not trying to solve every single issue, but make sure that each and every municipality can continue its work until the infrastructure bill is finally created. And that gap funding will be there and be available. And we will also create a diversity, equity, and inclusion commission, the first of its kind in this nation, and something that is going to move this community forward, I believe, together in unity, and change the way we empower the citizens of this community. So I'm very proud of the work that myself and my colleagues have done, working with the rest of the people in Erie County, the input of so many people countywide who have taken the time to come and meet with us at our COVID meetings, to stop us on the street, to call us on our phone, to send us emails, to have discussions of the things that they believe are important, powerful, and impactful in our community. So I believe that what we're moving towards tonight is unity, continued unity, unity of cause, unity of purpose, and unity of resiliency. And for that, I think we can all be very proud. Let's continue forward with the meeting. Under old business, we have a second reading of ordinance number 65. Mr. Smith, could you give us that in title only, please?
A second reading of ordinance number 65, 2021. 2021 American Rescue Plan Act Fund Supplemental Appropriation of $26,315,751 for creation of American Rescue Plan Act Fund budget to administer and disperse ARPA grant funding.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Clear,
I would like to make a motion to amend the face sheet.
please do.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to strike out, be it further enacted that the final distribution of funds by Erie County must be approved by County Council, and that weekly reports on ARPA expenditures shall be provided to Council by the administration through December 31st, 2021. And I would like to add in the wording, be it further enacted that monthly reports on ARPA expenditures shall be provided to council by the administration through December 31st, 2021. Thereafter, the administration shall provide council with quarterly reports on ARPA expenditures, starting with the quarter ending March 31st, 2022, and continuing thereafter until December 31st, 2026. The final audit and distribution of funds by the administration, including funds returned by third-party recipients, shall be submitted to and approved by County Council. In addition, the amendment would also add in this language, be it further enacted that ARPA grant funds shall be used to cover the costs obligated by the recipient before December 31st, 2024. ARPA grant funds not obligated by December 31st, 2024, or used to cover the costs of obligated funds by December 31st, 2026, must be returned to Erie County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to second the motion to amend.
Thank you. We have a motion to amend by Councilwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Mr. Smith, can we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. We will now move forward as amended. And Mr. Smith, could you just read the line item under Exhibit A, the beginning account title, and those included in the account? You can just read the names of them rather than the amounts. First beginning with revenue, please.
The first section will be revenue. That includes the American Rescue Plan, A, checking interest B, and grant funds C.
Thank you.
So move.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman? Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you. I would like to make a motion to vote on items A, B, and C as one vote in the revenue section.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to include A, B, and C as one vote by Councilwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please, on the amendment?
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. We have a vote, a motion as amended.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion as amended.
Second.
Second. I would like to second that.
Thank you. We have a second by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie for the motion under revenue, voting together as one as amended.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. And just so the public knows, as we're voting through these, to try and expedite this, we're trying to have the Chair of Finance, the personnel voting, so I'm not ignoring my other colleagues, just trying to keep it with the folks next to me to try and keep myself in order here. So, next, Mr. Smith, could we have a reading of the next line item under the ARPA administration?
Expenditure ARPA Administration, $35,000.
So moved?
Second?
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On the expenditure lines, Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you read under the title Community Future Center, each category as printed on the exhibit, please?
Community Future Center, $280,000.
So moved?
Second?
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Mr. Smith, as the
sorry.
exhibit is written, if you could read that.
Sure.
Then we'll have to amend it, I guess is what I was saying.
Line A is travel work required, $9,500. Line B is data processing, $2,000. Line C is telephone, $1,500. Line D is postage, $1,000. Line E, duplicating and printing, $1,000. Line F, professional fees, $250,000. Line G, other office supplies, $5,000. Line H, $10,000.
Thank you, and we had a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman?
Madam Vice Chair?
I would like to make a motion to amend the exhibit. I would like to eliminate all account numbers and so that it would be moved into a restricted account, with the new account number being 068-025-112-003700.
Would like to second that?
Thank you. Should we also include the language that's printed on the Mr. Smith? Or are we okay?
I could read it for you, Mr.
No,
Chairman, if you
we
like.
include that in the motion to remove it, or do we not need to?
The new language regarding the restricted
No,
account?
The old language that's printed on the sheet.
I don't think that's necessary,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then we have a motion to amend Communities Future Center by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, could we have a roll call vote on the amendment, please?
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could we have a reading of the next line, the revenue replacement? Should we do it as amended? I'm sorry, before we move forward.
Yes, sir,
Under Future
we
Center.
should.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, can we have a roll call vote then on the Community Future Center as amended? I got ahead of myself there.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Now, may we have a reading of the next line item category under revenue replacement, Mr. Smith?
Under revenue replacement, $7,092,000. There is just one line for a transfer to the general fund.
So moved?
Second?
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? I just want to point out to the public here before we vote on this, that in this particular item under revenue replacement, these funds actually are being transferred to the general fund, and then from the general fund, we will allocate them in our next ordinance, which is ordinance number 66, once we complete the voting of ordinance number 65. With that said, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On the expenditure section, Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, may you read the line items for the county assessed needs category, please?
County assessed needs, $386,760. Line A, maintenance and repairs, $60,000. Line B, professional fees, $10,000. Line C, computer supplies, $240,000. Line D, other office supplies, $34,760. Line E, capital outlay, $42,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear.
I would like to make a motion to vote on items A, B, C, D, and E as one vote.
I would like to second that.
We have an amendment by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please, on the
Mis-
amendment?
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear.
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on the county assessed needs as amended?
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear.
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, under the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, could you read that in its entirety?
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission grant, $3,500,000. There's just one line item for that amount. The special language includes Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission grant. The money for this grant will be placed in a restricted account until the commission is formed and a board is seated by county council and the administration.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to amend the accounting number on this to 068-025-115-003700. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion to amend by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on this item as amended, please?
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Congratulations to the people of Erie County, Pennsylvania. You've changed the trajectory of our community. Mr. Smith, can you read the items under the municipal assistance category, please?
Municipal assistance expenditure, $3,500,000. Line A, municipal infrastructure gap funding grants, $2,500,000. Line B, public safety grants, $1 million.
So moved.
Second on,
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear.
I would like to make a motion to make a change to the number in the A municipal infrastructure gap funding grants. It looks like it was just a typing error. There's an extra zero. So it should read $2,500,000, and it right now it does not, just because of the extra zero. And I just want to make sure we're.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, Mr. Smith, we were going to vote on these two items separately. So the amendment, should we have a remotion? Because it seemed like we were making a motion to vote for the whole category. Or can we say that the motion was to vote for the administration and planning, the $2.5 million?
Probably the motion should be reframed by Mrs. Clear.
Okay.
Before we do the amendment, could you reframe the motion? And I apologize, I should have thought that.
Okay. I'm making a motion to change
No,
to.
to vote for the.
Sorry.
Administered of the municipal infrastructure, $2.5 million.
Okay, to vote for the municipal infrastructure gap funding grant for $2.5 million.
second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear and a second by Councilwoman Rennie. And Vice Chairwoman Clear, you have a amendment?
Yes, I do. I would like to amend the amount that is written down here to actually reflect $2,500,000 as there's an extra zero.
Second.
We don't want to give $25 million to that particular account. So we have a motion to amend a typo by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
And this is also on line item A, correct?
This would be.
Or just the amendment?
amendment.
This would be to amend it.
All right. On the amendment, Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote under the municipal infrastructure gap funding as amended, please?
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton, Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Our next item would be the public safety grant.
Mr. Chairman, I move to vote on the public safety grant for $1 million.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Mr. Shank?
I'm good. I could go on for a couple hours, but, I'm really happy to see this put aside. I know it's always been a struggle to support our volunteer fire departments, and as a proud member, I really appreciate the fact that the administration and everybody worked together to help our volunteers, because they are really in dire needs right now. So we thank the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Schenk. I too want to offer a couple comments on this particular item, and that is here we are also, I think, taking new ground in a new direction in Erie County. And when I was at CCAP and had conversations with a number of people from around the state, the comments that came back were, Erie County, you got it. The concerns that are happening across this Commonwealth in regards to volunteerism, particularly volunteer firefighters, has dropped in numbers from in the year 2000, where there was roughly 331,000 volunteers, to today, where we have roughly 34,000 volunteers. This is an area that cannot sustain these type of decreased numbers any longer. And the mechanism in which we use to support and promote and retain and train our volunteer firefighters and our EMS workers is critical. This is on the cutting edge of putting seed money aside, waiting to create a fire authority as we wait for enabling legislation from the state government. And that legislation will be coming forward because this is too critical of an element across the state for it not. So I am honored to step forward as a leader in this particular item with the counsel of our colleagues, continuously fighting for volunteer fire companies and EMS, which represent each and every one of our districts and all members of Erie County. This is another one of these items that we are really stepping forward, and we certainly would be remiss if we didn't thank the work being done by the COG, Jessica Rand-Kunso, the Volunteer Fire Associations, and the Public Safety Department, particularly John Crafty. So we applaud their efforts, and we want them to know that we support their concerns and are financially getting behind their solution. With that, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line item B from the municipal assistant grant area, Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Smith. When you're ready, can you please move on to the county economic development, please? And this is an area, if you could read each line item, but we're going to vote each separate line.
County economic development expenditure, $3,667,000, administered by the Redevelopment Authority. Entrepreneurship will include a grant received by SBA Matching Original, includes E for All, Women and Minority Business, the Diversity Loan Program, START Grant for the Arts. All entities must apply for any other possible matching or available grant funding for workforce development, minority grant program through Erie Chamber and Growth Partnership. Line A is urban renewal and community development, $2,779,500. Line B is entrepreneurship, $737,500. Line C is workforce development, $150,000.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
So-
On line A.
So move.
Second.
This would be a motion for a vote on line A under the urban renewal, correct?
Correct.
Thank, no, that's okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any questions or comments from members of council?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rastetter, go ahead, please.
If we clarify which one of these comes under which, A, B, or C, you have all these listed, that E for all, women, minority, and business loans. Does that all come under A?
No, those will be under B, under entrepreneurship.
Those all come under B?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilman Rastetter. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on line A under the economic development?
Mr. Rastetter,
No.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Next, we have line item B, entrepreneurship.
Oh, so moved, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council on these particular items? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please, on item B under economic development?
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
No.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Next, we have workforce development, line C.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions of members of council under line C? Of Erie County economic development. Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
No.
Mr. Rastetter,
No.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, can you please read to us just the names of the line items under the public health category? Yes, please.
Expenditure for public health, $1,230,000. Line A, overtime, $45,025. Line B, FICA, $3,432. Line C, workers' compensation, $1,307. Line D, pension, $5,236. Line E, pass-through, $50,000. Line F, neighborhood resource, $10,000. Line G, police athletic league, $10,000. Line H, blue zones, $745,000. Line I, employee vaccine incentive, $360,000.
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Smith, or, I'm sorry, Chairman Anderson.
Oh, hold on, let me recognize your motion first.
Oh, sorry.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear.
I would like to make a motion to vote on items A through G as one vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion to amend by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions of members of council on this particular amendment? Mr. Smith, may you please read a roll call vote as amended?
On items A through G, Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, was that a vote on the amendment or on the motion to amend, or was that a vote on those items?
That was a motion to amend, and now can we vote on those items as amended under one vote?
Mr. Chairman, actually, it's technically not an amendment, it's just a different way of voting.
Okay,
Oh.
so
So I think council voted.
we satisfied the public requirement. Thank you. Thank you. We would have, next item then would be the blue zone.
I think you do want a motion then to vote on line item H.
So moved, line item H.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council on this particular item? I would just mention to the public on this particular item that it wasn't read, but it is our hope in county government that we can expand the successful Blue Zone program that has been started in Corey. Although this is a larger region of the community that needs community partners to step forward, county government would be one of those 7 or 8 community partners. And we put a restriction on these funds that until all 7 partners have signed on, we would hold on to this money and restrict it. And if all 7 partners do not sign on, or we do not have 7 partners fully funding their particular share, that this item would not become unrestricted. But this is a good step forward in hoping that the collaboration will continue to work on this particular item. With that said, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to vote on letter I, employee vaccination incentive.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council on this particular item?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilwoman Showerman.
This is a tough one for me. I am all for vaccinations, and I believe that people should have them, and they do save lives. But as our county executive said, that these funds are here for the people in the community, and we need to get the money back in the community, and to keep $360,000 for ourselves and the people that are fortunate enough to work for the county, I don't think is right. I struggle with encouraging people to get their vaccines all the time, and I've even tried to bribe my daughter to get hers. And the people that don't want to get them are not going to get them. And I don't think the incentive is going to help. If we were giving an incentive to everyone in Erie County, it would be different. But to save $360,000 just for people that work for the county, I struggle with that. And I can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Showerman. Councilman Rastetter?
Yeah, I have to agree with Ellen, and I think it sets a bad precedent, and I don't believe it will actually encourage that many people to get a vaccine. It is a tough one. It's tough to figure out why people won't get vaccines. A lot of it is due to misinformation, internet hoax, people that believe in all that Facebook jazz. And so I'm going to vote no against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rastetter. Councilman Shank?
Thank you. I know I've spoken this once before, and I stand pretty strong where I stood before. To try to bribe county employees to get in a shot and pay them $300, I think is a little offensive when county employees went through the whole pandemic, didn't miss one paycheck, but they got to stay home in their jammies while everybody else was struggling. So I'm not going to support this, and if this does pass, I will proudly take that $300. I'm going to donate it to one of my local veterans center. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Shank. Councilman Horton?
Thank you, Chairman Anderson, and thank you to all my other colleagues who voiced where they're at on the issue. I too struggled with this. For several of the reasons that were already mentioned, I am going to support this, however, tonight. Just watching the landscape change, not just here in Erie County, but nationally. And we have the disturbing report that our county executive gave us this evening. And while I am vaccinated, and I question why we must incentivize others to do the same, I see it as a possible life-saving measure. So I'll support it. But like my colleague, Councilman Shake, should I be awarded anything, I too will donate mine to the charity of my choice. Mr. Chairman, thank you for my time.
Thank you, Councilman Horton. Are there any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on line 9? Aye.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
No.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
No.
Mr. Shank,
No.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Measure passes.
Mr. Smith, may you please read for us under business category, under business grants, each category that's included. And we will vote on each one of those as a separate line item.
Under business grant expenditures, $2,624,991. Line A, shuttered venue grants, $1,474,991. Line B, new small business grants, $150,000. Line C, lead asset grants. I believe that's probably should be $1 million.
There's that zero we lost.
Those pesky zeros.
When we get to it.
Placeholder.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to vote on A, shuttered venue grants for one.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council under this particular item? I just want to mention to the public, these items will be administered by the Erie County Redevelopment Authority. And the intent under this particular category may be a little confusing with a program that the federal government has in place, but of a similar nature. But there are several types of businesses in our community that had no relief during or after the pandemic in either grants or PPP. And I'm not going to give an exhaustive list, but there are items such as ice skating rinks, roller rinks, bowling alleys, golf courses, etc. And this would give an opportunity for those vitally important elements of our community not only in the amount of revenue that they bring into our community, but the cultural and recreational items that they bring to better the lives of each and every one of us in Erie County. And so under this particular item, we thank the Redevelopment Authority for their work in this area and their continued work with these critically important businesses throughout Erie County. Mr. Smith, with that, may we have a roll call vote on item A?
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to vote on B, new small business grants.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council under this particular item?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Rastetter.
yeah, I'll make a comment on that. I don't believe that the county should be in the business-making business. I think it's totally discriminatory to select new small businesses, just like the SBA loans. You have to have started your business within the COVID period, and what defines small. So I will be voting against this portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rastetter. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Although I appreciate my colleagues' comments and understand the comments that he did make, this particular grant, $150,000, which is a small amount for small businesses, and will once again be administered through the Redevelopment Authority, is intended to help those businesses in Erie County that have taken a risk and believe in themselves and this community to make an investment during the middle of COVID. This pandemic has shut down many businesses across this community, and it takes courage to open your doors during that time. The intent of this grant is for those businesses that were not in existence and did not have the revenue statements for the previous 12 months before COVID began, that they would have some kind of relief or incentive to continue moving forward. And that is just so the public knows what the intent of that particular line item is. With that said, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line B, Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
No.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to vote on item C, lead asset grants. I apologize. And amend the face sheet.
We'll make a motion.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Make a motion first on that and then the amendment. I'd like, to vote on lead assets grants.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear.
I would like to make a motion. Everyone's
Please.
really surprised. Okay, I would like to make a motion to amend the amount on here to reflect $1 million rather than the $100,000.
Second.
We have a motion to amend this item by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on the amendment, please?
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. And just so everyone knows, technically, I'm supposed to recognize the vice chairwoman every time she has to be recognized, and we haven't done that, so. But I think.
I'm not waiting.
Everyone gets the gist, so we continue to move forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Before I recognize you, should we vote on that now, Mr. Smith, as amended? Okay. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on, under business grants C as amended?
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. I did want to point out under this particular category that these particular lead assets need to apply for the federal shuttered venues grant program through either the PPP option or through their ticket sales before funds will be released. And next, Mr. Smith, under transformative grants, could you read that, the amount, and who the administrator will be, please?
Transformative grants expenditure, $4 million, to be administered by the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council on this particular item? Before we take a vote, I'll just make some quick comments for those of you who are interested in this particular item. This is an area where nonprofits and businesses who have transformed themselves or come up with ideas to help transform the community can apply for grants and continue to move forward and help this community move forward in a strong and upward fashion as we all continue to move forward from the pandemic. And with that being said, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Chairman Anderson?
Vice Chairwoman Clear.
Wow, they did it.
I would like to make a motion to vote on ordinance number 65 as amended.
Second.
We have a motion to vote on ordinance number 65 as amended by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on ordinance 65 as amended?
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, we will give you a second to organize yourself as we organize ourselves. If you're following along with us and you have the packet, page 103, begins our next ordinance. And Mr. Smith, are you ready?
I am.
Mr. Smith, may we have a reading of ordinance number 66 in its entirety, please, but without the exhibit, since we'll be voting on that.
Ordinance number 66, 2021, 28th, 2021 general fund budget, supplemental appropriation of $7,092,000, and creation of new line items for transfer from American Rescue Plan Act Fund for revenue replacement. Be it enacted by the County Council of the County of Erie pursuant to Article 2, Section 3B1, and Article 8, Section 8 of the Erie County Home Rule Charter, and certified by the County Executive that the general fund budget supplemental appropriation of $7,092,000 and creation of new line items for transfer from American Rescue Plan Act Fund for revenue replacement are hereby approved as outlined on the attached Exhibit A. This ordinance shall be effective immediately upon adoption.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on ordinance number 66 by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie.
Mr. Chairman,
Madam Vice Chair?
I would like to vote on the transfer from the ARP fund, the amount of $7,092,000.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you just read the heading of the category under A, please?
Line item A is maintenance and repair, $142,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on maintenance and repair?
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, may you read for us, please, number B?
Item B is capital outlay, $150,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on item B?
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you please read item number C by title and amount for us, please?
Line C is firefighters grant, $300,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? I just wanted to point out under this particular item that we do have volunteer fire companies in Erie County that in their charter were created as 501c3 boards, and they were not eligible to receive funding under any other means in the CARES money or in this year under the ARPA money. So as we've transferred the money into this particular category, it gives us a means to be able to assist those fire companies in ways that they were not otherwise able to get funds. So I applaud council again for moving this particular item forward and recognizing these vital parts of our community that also need funds. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote?
On line C, Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you read item number D for us and the amount, and could you read the restriction as well in that particular item?
Line D is the Erie County Convention Center Authority, $2 million. The Convention Center Authority must apply for the Shuttered Facilities Grant, PPP, and/or federal grant funding.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Councilman Rastetter?
Say they do get money from the other grants that are available, then how do you dispose of the money that comes back?
Councilman Rastetter, we're expecting that and hoping, and perhaps even praying, that they receive money from the other entities that they're applying for because they're going to need that to fill in their deficit. We are anticipating that they will receive funds in the amount of $2.3 million, which will still leave them $2 million with revenue losses. So this is still anticipated, and there is no restriction in here that says if they get other grants that replaces these funds. What our intent here is to ensure that they apply for other funds so they can leverage the funds that we're giving them to the maximum amount. So to answer your question, that there is no restriction here of that if they get grants from other avenues that these funds would have to be returned.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line item D, Convention Center, Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, next, can you read in its entirety under the Erie County Council of Governments?
Line item E, Erie Council of Governments, $50,000.
I just wanted to leave room for you to have something to read there. That's fine. I left out the money.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? I just want to thank the Council of Governments and Jessica Haran Kunso for the tireless work that she continues to do on behalf of Erie County and all municipal governments associated with Erie County. This grant that we're allotting to her really allows her to have funds to team up with other municipal governments and the planning department and all of the entities that she continuously works with throughout Erie County as we distribute the ARPA funds and other silos of money that we anticipate are going to be coming into Erie County. With that said, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote?
On line E, Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, can you read it in its entirety, item number F, please?
Line item F is EC3 Empowerment Grant, $1,500,000.
So moved.
Second?
Wait, can you just read the restriction?
The EC3 Empowerment Grant is eligible if the student has been a 12-month continuous resident of Erie County and continues a residence throughout enrollment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Vice Chairwoman Clear.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to express my excitement for this because I know that the students that are looking to get started this fall are not eligible for Pell or FIA grants, nor are they eligible for the Stafford loan. I worked in financial aid during my college years for 4 years, and I know what a hardship it can be. And I think that the part of this that I am most excited about is that it's access to education. And I'm a firm believer in that education can be the great stabilizer. And I know how much it's needed here in Erie County. I know how so many businesses and industries have not been investing in Erie County because we did not have a community college. And we don't have a workforce to be taught. So this is an opportunity for these students from all over the county to have free access to education. And I'm a believer in education. So I just want to commend the county executive and you, Chairman, for coming up with this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Rastetter.
May I add one quick comment? I heard something from an admiral recently, and it sticks with me. Education is a national security problem. So anybody that's against education should think about that. National security issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Rastetter. And by the way, thank you, Vice Chairwoman Clear, for your comments as well. Any other comments or questions from members of council? I too want to echo Vice Chairwoman Clear's remarks. This is another time where we are stepping forward, stepping up for the promise of generations of young people to come, and stepping forward with the responsibility that we have in county government to move our county forward. I believe not only in education, but I also believe that as we have a trained workforce, we have better citizens, we have more businesses wanting to come to this community, we have more revenue coming into this community, and we uplift us all by this particular item. We have and will continue to move forward the momentum of the community college effort. And I have to say that The buzz about Erie County across the state is tremendous in the things that we're doing to transform ourselves and to believe in ourselves and invest in ourselves and believe in the resiliency and the hope and opportunity that will last in our community for generations to come. So I applaud all of us as we move forward this particular item. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line item F, Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you read item number G in its entirety, please?
Line item G is an EC3 barrier reduction grant, $250,000. EC3 empowerment grant to be eligible. I'm sorry, that's not the correct one. I believe that's all, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Rennie?
Thank you. We've voted on a number of things that will have great impact in the community. This one in particular is near and dear to me. Like Councilwoman Clear, I am a huge supporter of education, in fact, lifelong education, and I think community colleges speak to the need for lifelong education, just as libraries speak to that need. However, community colleges have been around for a long time, and while they have provided access to affordable education, I'm a big believer in identifying the gaps that have existed over many decades in education and in community colleges as well, that often don't produce results to those in the lowest sectors of our economies and of our communities. So I believe in progressive programs that will provide support, student support services, academic support services that will address and will meet the needs of these students who are coming in. And so this particular grant is the beginning of that program, what I hope will be a very innovative program and will be a leader, I think, and I hope, throughout the United States for the Erie County Community College. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear?
I would like to publicly thank Councilwoman Rennie for this. Councilwoman Rennie and I have been talking about the community college for a few years now, and this is birthed from Councilwoman Rennie, and I want to give her full credit for that, because I think that the barriers that are put in place, or the barriers that many of these students have will keep them from gaining access to this education. And I can't thank you enough for coming up with this. I really can't. Thank you, Councilwoman Rennie.
Any other questions or comments? Councilwoman Rennie, I too want to echo those sentiments and thank you for your thoughtfulness, your insight, and your endurance to continue to fight for this particular item, which is a critical component of what will be a successful community college. And I applaud your efforts. Thank you. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line item G, Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Smith, could you read item H in its entirety, please?
Line item H is a transfer to PRM in the amount of $2,700,000.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Mr. Smith, could you include reading the restriction on this particular item?
Pleasant Ridge Manor must apply for any available revenue replacement grants through state and federal government.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councilman Horton?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be supporting this ordinance, but I do have to just put on the record that for several years now, we've been filling this deficit for Pleasant Ridge. It's a really tough conversation that must be had moving forward to the future. I'm very, very familiar with the need, and I've spoken to quite a few people in the community about where Pleasant Ridge is going and what the county's intent is. I have some ideas, but I just want to put on the record that Pleasant Ridge Manor cannot continue to lose money in this manner. I don't know if the answer is downsizing to scale or selling beds, but I admonish the next council, whomever they may be, to take a serious look at what we're going to do about Pleasant Ridge. No business can sustain that type of financial forecast. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to enter those comments into the record.
Thank you, Councilman Horton. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Horton, I just want to echo the comments that you made. This is concerning, to say the least. And I, too, want to counsel the next councils and administration that this is something that they have to look at and streamline. But I also want to express the value that Pleasant Ridge gives to this community. This is an item that's a long-term investment, and it is suffering greatly because of this pandemic. But as we invest in this community in many, many programs, this is one area where so many people throughout this community never use the services of this county and never ask for services from this county and live their life paying taxes, whether it's income or property taxes, but find themselves after raising their family in a position where they cannot afford health care in their declining years. They deserve to have a place like Pleasant Ridge Manor where they can go that provides the affordable care that they deserve, because everyone deserves to have a place where they can spend their remaining years with dignity and respect. Pleasant Ridge Manor provides that to our community, and we need to keep that in mind as we move forward and think about long-term investments in this community, not just in terms of the short-term losses in the pandemic. That doesn't excuse the severity or the concerns that my colleagues have expressed and brought up today. But it does give us a framework to look longer term in this particular item. And with that said, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chair, before you proceed, as I think I would be remiss, and I know that you would want these comments entered as well. I believe I can speak on behalf of myself and all of us colleagues who serve as the board of Pleasant Ridge and the county executive. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you how great the employees are there, the men and women who are work there. And I'm going to take my mask off for this one because I get a little misty-eyed when I think about the pandemic and last year and what we endured and the loss of life and the families that were affected. Those who lost their life to the COVID-19 disease. And Mr. Bob Smith and his staff worked tirelessly against all odds. That's our health department. Our county employees are just, we can't compensate them like we'd like to sometimes, but I got to tell you, we have some of the greatest employees this side of the Mississippi. And there are none finer than those at Pleasant Ridge, man. They're under assault every day. It's their job losses, people threatening to leave. It's tough to be in healthcare right now. But they've been steadfast, they've been upright, and they've been unmovable. And so I don't want my comments to in any way, shape, or form seem like it's reflecting on the operation of the facility or the men and women of the facility. I don't care from the groundskeeper to the skilled nurses. They're phenomenal. The fact is, Pleasant Ridge Manor is something that we're going to have to look at. Thank you to all our employees that work there.
Thank you, Councilman Hort, for those continued comments. Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On line item H, Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairwoman Clear?
I would like to make a motion to vote on ordinance number 66 as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chairwoman Clear, seconded by Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote, please?
On ordinance 66 as amended, Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mrs. Clear,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. I want to thank everybody that is here and has endured with us through this long meeting. We have done exceptional work on behalf of our community. I applaud all of our staff and the employees of Erie County and the work of my colleagues. And with that being said, if there's no other business to come before this council, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.